Hey, it's your host, Brandon Laws. Welcome to Transform Your Workplace. If you're giving us a try for the first time, thanks for tuning in. We've got a great episode for you today. Transform Your Workplace is brought to you by Xenium HR. It just never ends. Small to mid-sized businesses are drowning in the ever-changing demands of HR administration and compliance. It's not right. You shouldn't have to lose your focus on growth to take care of your people. Learn more about Xenium's complete HR plus payroll solution at xeniumhr.com. In this episode of Transform Your Workplace, I sit down with Alysson Bourque and Lori Orlinsky. They're two dynamic entrepreneurs who have taken a unique career path from their corporate roles to founding a successful PR firm. They share inspiring stories of their transition from teaching law and journalism to authoring children's books and being entrepreneurs. So in this episode, you're going to hear about how they navigated the challenges of leaving stable and secure jobs to building a thriving business during the pandemic and found balance as working moms. So whether you're dreaming of your own career pivot or just love a good success story and you're finding balance as a working parent, this episode is packed with insights and inspiration for you. Enjoy today's episode with Alysson Bourque and Lori Orlinsky. Here it is. Lori, it is a pleasure to have you on Transform Your Workplace. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you.
You both have a very unique background, Allie, and I know you were a teacher, you're a lawyer, now a children's book author and an owner of a PR firm. Not a linear path by any means. And Lori, I know your story's the same. Why the change? What inspired these career changes for both of you? And Allie, maybe you start.
Sure. Yeah, so I have a background in elementary education. I've always loved to read, write, to help others. And I thought being a teacher would be the perfect way to have, a career doing that. So I taught 1 year of school, but really always had in the back of my head the idea of going to law school because I love to write, I love to help others. And I did that, and I practiced law for nearly 8 years as an assistant attorney general, representing the state of Louisiana, and really loved that career, but felt deep inside that there was something more for me. And so I took a temporary retirement to stay at home with my kids who were young at the time. And while doing that, I started writing them stories, like children's books. And I ended up sending off the first book to over 200 agents and publishers. And about a week before I was going to go back to practicing law, I got picked up by a publisher. And so I headed on another career path, publishing books. And then Lori and I collaborated together with a podcast during the pandemic, which I'm sure she can tell you a lot more about.
Yes. So my background is it is more of a linear path, but it takes a couple of turns. So I went to school for journalism and did writing for a lot of national newspapers and magazines, and then just made the expected leap into PR and marketing. And so I started out at a big firm managing accounts like Splenda and Breyer's Ice Cream, which was very delicious, but I definitely gained like the Breyer's Ice Cream 30 that year. And my kind of final step in the marketing world was I was the director of marketing at PBS in Chicago, which was awesome. I got to go to conventions and see different Sesame Street characters. And so it was sweet. I always focused on parents and kids with lots of things that I did. And one day my daughter, who's now 11, she was 3 at the time, came home crying because they had done an activity at school where she was the shortest kid in class. And so she was being bullied. And it wasn't necessarily like mean bullying, but it could have turned into that. They were calling her Peanut and Shorty. And so naturally, I decided, to take her to Barnes & Noble or to go to Amazon and try and find a book to make her feel better. And there wasn't a book. And so I wrote one for her. Being small isn't so bad after all. And I got a publisher, and it kind of caught fire as a book for bullying prevention, regardless of, what you may see as your differences. And I just love writing, and I kept going, and I've written a couple more lesson-based books. But Allie and I, as she mentioned, we got together during the pandemic because we wanted to find a way to bring authors to school still and give teachers a break. And so after this podcast, we had so many people coming up to us, Facebook groups and whatnot, telling us it was so nice how we were able to reinvent ourselves and can we help them with marketing. And we started with one client in the children's book area, and we've done over 500 books. We also work for publishers as well, and we do all different genres now. We've had sports books, we've had novels, and we even joke, but we had an erotica book from a 90-year-old woman and her knitting circle.
It's the best.
So that was definitely a fun project to do.
She had a whole playlist of songs that went with her erotica novel, which was great. We listened to it. It was wonderful.
Oh, I love that you're helping so many people with their books and their ideas. I always admire the creatives like you. I mean, both of you, it sounds like there was some sort of need. As parents, there was something that triggered that. The creativity was always there, but something was needed in the moment for your children, and then you turned it into an opportunity. What was like the biggest challenge moving from probably a stable corporate job to entrepreneur status? That is not an easy leap.
So there's so many different things, so many obstacles to overcome when you go from, corporate or a firm to owning your own business. So basically, every moment of your day is about your job because you do it all. Mm-hmm. We're in charge of everything from bookkeeping, invoicing our clients, the people who work for us. And it's just navigating those different parts of a business would be, for me, the hardest part of transitioning from, the corporate world to entrepreneurship.
And I think for me, initially, it was fear. I was afraid that, did I just up and quit my job? Did I make the right decision while we're going strong now? Can we sustain that growth? And so a lot of it was finding the confidence in myself and finding the confidence in our business to succeed. And now it's less about fear and more about, I want to be able to really be productive during those hours that my kids are not in school, but then put down the computer when they're home. And it's hard when you live and work in the same place. But Allie and I both have great obligations to our families, and we make sure our families always come first and our clients come first during the day.
That's pretty incredible. So like you two, went from corporate to then growing this business together. And I'm sure you've learned a lot of lessons about how you wanted to grow and scale this business, your business versus like things that you saw in the corporate world. What are some of those lessons that you learned about, how you wanted to lead, how you wanted to scale your business versus like seeing all the wrong things that can happen in the corporate world?
So for me, it was about finding our target audience of who is our clientele. And, we are in the business of marketing. So your target audience is your number one. So finding who our perfect clients are, that was super important to me. You can take in every single book author that there is, but they may not be a good fit for you, and you might not get them the results that you want. So we take about 30% of the submissions that come our way, and it's the books that we've read. We know that we can get them some results that we promise.
I agree with everything Allie says. And even, in the corporate world, what I found difficult was kind of doing things the way it always had been done. So following a plan of your predecessors and those before. And what made me unique is I would always kind of challenge that by finding new ways to do it, maybe making it more efficient time-wise or process-wise. And so what was a challenge for me was to be able to have that autonomy to not put everybody in the same marketing plan. We really find a way to take a time to have a deep dive consult with people, listen to what their book is about, what the story is behind their story, because everybody's got a reason why they wrote their book. And so we want to make sure to get to know our clients so we know what angles to pursue and what goals that they have so we can succeed for them. We never do anything the same. And so it was just such an interesting transition to go from this is how we always do it in the corporate world, to kind of following a script to doing it completely customizing. And it's just such a wonderful thing. And I think it allows you to listen to your customers, and it allows everyone to be more successful that way.
Before we started recording, I believe, Ali, you said that you and Lori hadn't ever, like, you'd done the podcast together, collaborated, but you hadn't met in person for like over a year or something like that. So then you, at some point, decided to start this business together, this PR firm. How did you two grow together as partners in this business and develop that relationship?
So we're polar opposites. We are so much alike, but we are so different. And I think, my weaknesses, she has those strengths, and vice versa. And I always go through life where if something works out, then it's meant to be, and you keep doing it. And if it doesn't work out after several tries and putting all that effort and trying to persevere, then it's not meant to be. And so as we started, everything just lined up, and we really meshed well together. I mean, of course, over the years, we've had to kind of grow together and learn from each other. And we're very open-minded. We're very trusting of each other. And so it just makes it really great partnership.
And pun intended, we always are on the same page of everything. But if we're not, we work through it and we find kind of the middle ground and compromises. And as Ali said, our strengths and our weaknesses line up perfectly with each other. For example, Ali is wonderful at everything website building, graphic design, and I can't even draw a stick figure or, clearly get a video working on camera. And then some of my strengths, fall more towards me on the writing side. And so we kind of let each other take what works for us, and, we help out as needed.
Do you two have employees? Or is it just the two of you running this firm?
Yes, we have social media managers, and then we have someone who helps us with specific projects like our virtual book tours.
Yeah, I imagine like that first hire, especially in bringing other people into the business that you're trying to grow and scale, you're probably careful about who you bring in and making sure that that story that you're telling each other and how you want to run your business and even the clients you bring on, that they fit the mold. Like, did you ever think through that carefully?
Yes, it's hard because Lori and I are both type A, and we are self-proclaimed control freaks. So it's hard to let go of the reins. But, when we found that we were spending more than 10 hours a day on work, we had to delegate. And that's a big part of being your own boss and entrepreneurship. And so that was a tough battle of finding the right people, but we now have the right people and it works, and we're able to kind of hand off projects, and now we can get more things done.
And it's also making sure the people that we work with, we have the confidence in them that although they might not get to the end result the same way we would, they're still doing it in their own way, and it's correct and it's working. And so we really like to give our employees the autonomy to kind of get to that end result however they see fit. And what's really neat about it is that it's like a different job every day for them as they work on different authors.
It's funny that you're both type A and are speaking like this, because I imagine it was so hard to get rid of certain things. Like, nobody's going to do it as good as you can do it. And delegating is hard when you're an entrepreneur who probably wants things done a certain way. I mean, what were some of the first things that you got rid of? Like, Ali, maybe start with you.
So we're real nitpicky on things, obviously. Our clients are so important to us. We've been authors. We know how it feels. We want results. So, over time, we've had to be more as guides to our social media managers that we've had in the past. And we've also had to take a step back, like Lori said, and let them have creative control and not be so nitpicky. I think it's important with having employees to always approach them with something positive first and say, I love what you're doing. I love your aesthetics. Here's something we can kind of tweak and make a little bit better. And so we try to, instead of just being type A and, having complete control, we try to let go a little bit and fill it with positivity, because they are doing a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said earlier, The one thing that was really difficult for me in the corporate world was doing it like your predecessor did it. And so it was really hard for us, especially me, to sit down with new employees and say, this is how to do it, because I want to be the boss that I wanted. So it is giving them that freedom and saying, it was like changing it and saying, instead of this is how we do it, this is what we want the end result to be. And we're flexible. We want you to be creative, things like that. But it was the giving up control was really difficult because this business is just so near and dear to our hearts. It's a part of who we are. It's a part of our story. And we want to protect it in the greatest way. So that's why we make sure anybody we hire is a really good fit business-wise and personality-wise.
So we're all parents. I know what it's like to be a working dad. Working moms have it a little differently, I think. I think you're probably on a lot more than the dads out there. Not to take anything away from the dads, but moms are they're special, especially when kids are growing. What was it like as working moms in the corporate world versus now you run your own business and you still have growing children?
So there's a lot of positive and some negatives, but the positives are that my kids get to see firsthand what it's like to start a business from the ground up. They've seen the tribulations. They've seen the things I've struggled with. They know some of my clients. We talk about it. And so now my daughter is wanting to get a business degree when she goes into college. And I'm like, this is wonderful. She never would have thought of that. And so they get to be a part of it. And so that's, the positive. The negative is adapting and adjusting your work life and your space. But, it helps us manage. It teaches our children managing tools of how to multitask, how to stay focused, even when you have distractions. So I hope that they see that and not just, oh, there's mom working. But I think that they do, because they ask about things. And if we have a big contract, they ask about it. And I think that's really nice.
And, this is a new generation. At least when I was growing up in elementary school, we'd always kind of read books that the man was the provider and the woman was like in the kitchen doing laundry. And I have 3 daughters. And so it is so important for me to rewrite that narrative and to show them that, mom could be on an equal playing field as dad, could be even above playing field as dad. And it was really cool where you had a mystery guest at school. My daughter chose me, my 2nd grader. And I thought, okay, she chose me because I'm an author. And she said, no, mom, you have a business. You built a business. That's why I want people to talk to you. And I was completely shocked because the author is obviously the cool thing, but she's seeing really at the end of the day what makes a difference. And, I had heard somebody say, maybe I saw it on Facebook, but the only people who remember that you worked late are your kids. And so that really struck a chord for me. And it made me realize that things can wait until they go to bed. It doesn't have to be done while you have your time with your children. And everything else can be saved for the morning unless it's a true emergency. And luckily, we're not in the business where we're in medical emergencies or anything like that. So most of our stuff could come second to our kids.
Lori, you earlier were talking about how a conversation you had with one of your kids about bullying, I think it was you that said this, that influenced a story that you ended up writing. I'm curious how, like for both of you, how the conversations you're having with your kids, either experiences you've had growing up or that they're experiencing influences the stories you write and the way in which you write it.
Yes. When that book came out, my daughter Haley was probably 5 and 6. And she was still the shortest kid in class, but she had this confidence about her. And then the pandemic hit, and Haley heard on the news, she and I were watching the news, I'll never forget it, and she heard that doctors and nurses were running out of masks and PPE. And so she went upstairs, and I just continued on with my day, and she came downstairs and said, I made these awesome bracelets. I want to sell them for $2 and donate all of the money to Lurie Children's Hospital, which is in Chicago. So I said, great. And so she started her own business. She started taking custom orders. And one thing led to another. The mayor of Chicago was wearing her bracelets. She ended up raising $55,000.
What? That's incredible.
And I tribute, it was amazing. And she was on the Drew Barrymore show. She was on Good Morning America. She met Carrie Underwood. And I believe that she got that business drive from watching Allie and myself. But I believe that she found the confidence through having a book that taught her that she is valued and deserving. And she and I, when she has time, because she's so much more busy than I am, is we go to different schools and we talk about bullying and the outcomes and the need to be together rather than apart. And what was really neat was Allie, she was asked to put her bracelets in the Grammy swag bag. I think this was in 2021. And so Allie and I, being the marketers that we are, both created these like acrylic charms with our books on them that she added to the bracelets. And so that was a really cool business play for us too.
Allie, what about you? What's influenced the stories that you tell?
So each one of my books has a different theme, and it's all based on my childhood or my kids' childhood. And so the most recent one talks a lot about bravery and the Sunday scaries. And so everyone from young and old has the Sunday scaries at some point or another, or it can be fearful. So I use the books as tools and resources to help others to get through different situations and to problem solve. And so by watching my own kids tackle things that made them nervous, I was able to write these stories and learn that being brave and bravery itself is doing something that makes you nervous and scared despite the fear. So it's actually just, it's not just being brave. It's working through things. It's the physical action. It's a verb. It's being brave. And so I was inspired to write my latest book after just watching, observing our children and observing, friends, adults, even myself. We all have something that we might be fearful. Like Lori said, she was fearful of going from the corporate world to owning your own business. And you just never know what you might be afraid of. So it's just giving readers the tools to help conquer those fears.
I also think both of us write for what we think is missing in the marketplace. So a story that doesn't exist that needs to be out there based on what we went through and our kids go through every day.
Yeah, it's well said, because I know, like, Allie, your latest book is Alley Cat and the Sunday Scaries. And I'm like, the Sunday Scaries thing is, maybe, I know kids deal with that, but in the corporate world, a lot of people deal with that. And I hear that a lot. And a lot of adults don't even know how to manage the stress and anxiety that comes from the Sunday Scaries. So I imagine, like, you picture an adult, a parent reading this to their kid and they're growing together through this Sunday Scaries story.
Yes, and hopefully they'll read it on a Sunday when they're about to go to work the next day. And so they realize that there's so many positive things to look forward to in the week. And if you can't think of them, you should really take some time to find the things that you look forward to. And there are just small little tools in there, like deep breathing and taking it one step at a time, using the help of your friends and family to get through it. And know that you're not alone. We're all going through some sort of Sunday scaries at one point or another.
What advice would both of you give to other working moms who are in the corporate world, but maybe have that entrepreneurial itch like you do, or have some creative ideas about how to start a business? Since you've been through it, I'm sure you have lots of great ideas.
So for me, I would say it's to not let your fear hold you back. And if you have this thing burning inside of you that you want to do something, get up and do it and not be fearful. And if you fail, give yourself grace, because it's those failures that make us stronger and how we learn.
And I would say as well, trust your gut, trust your instincts. If you have, as Allie said, if you have that desire, take a leap of faith and do it. The worst thing that could happen is you fail and then you pick yourself right back up. I think it's so important to have that confidence. And, imposter syndrome is so real and it's so hard to get over, but you have to just resign yourself to the fact that you're going to try your hardest, and your hardest may not be good enough for you, but it's good enough.
Please tell me that either one of you wrote a book on imposter syndrome. Please.
Maybe that'll be the next Alley Cat book, huh?
Yes. Yes.
I love it.
It's on the bucket list.
Well, I appreciate both of you coming on the podcast. Where can people learn more about your book series, the books that you have out, and your PR company?
So they can reach my Alley Cat series at alleycatseries.com. For our PR firm, expoundpublicity.com is the best way to reach us.
And you can find my information at LoriOrlinskyAuthor.com. It's a mouthful, so I'm sure you'll spell it out on the graphics.
And we'll put links to all your stuff in the show notes. I appreciate you both coming on. My guests today have been Alysson Bourque and Lori Orlinsky. Appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Yes, it was a pleasure to be on it.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning in for today's episode of Transform Your Workplace. The content on this show is strictly for general information and educational purposes only, so that you can go transform your workplace in a positive way. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on the show are the guest's own and don't represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of either Xenium HR, the sponsor of the show, or me, the host, Brandon Laws. Additionally, Xenium HR or myself, Brandon Laws, doesn't endorse any guest, their business, or any organization they represent, so discretion is advised. We encourage you to work with a trusted advisor to find a custom approach that fits your organization's needs. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode.